Unit 2 is focused on rights and relationships in regards to your residents. One of the first things that we want to discuss is OBRA, and you will need to be very familiar with OBRA, as you will see it on the test and on the final exam. OBRA stands for Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. And this is a federal law that was passed by Congress in 1987, in response to poor care and abuse in long-term care. It sets that minimum standards of care for the resident, and it also helped to standardize training for the nursing assistant. So basically what happened was there was all this horrible neglect and abuse occurring to residents within the nursing home. And so they came up with this nursing home initiative, and they started doing criminal background checks for the workers and had a national registry for nursing home aides. And there was just too many people that were dying and too many abuse reports, and staffing wasn't adequate, and people were abusing residents in one facility and going to another facility, and there was no way to track them. So that's what this law is about. That's why this came about, and it is a much more efficient way of trying to provide a safe environment for the elderly when they're in these long-term care settings. So resident rights, this is really important. Anytime you care for somebody, you need to keep three things in mind. Are you respecting their rights? Okay, and we're going to go over that today. Are you being safe? Are you putting in place all the safety measures for yourself and for them? And that will come in a future unit. Are you maintaining good infection control, hand washing, other standards that will keep them safe? And then the last thing, I guess that was three, but then the last thing I would say is common sense. So let's really address these rights. It's important to know what the residents' rights are and to apply that and think about how can you honor that when you're caring for someone. So they have a right to quality of life, and that is the best care available to them, dignity, choice, independence. They may not have a long quantity of life. They may not have very many days, weeks, months, years left, but whatever time they have left should be as good as we can possibly make it. Good food, good care, social engagement. They shouldn't just be thrown in a bed, shut in a room, and left there to die. Okay? So quality of life is very, very important. That is the first resident right. Next, there is the right to services and activities to maintain a high level of wellness. And so this is where that care plan comes into play to make sure that we are doing those things. We need to make sure that we are honoring the care plan. We do not want their health to decline as a direct result of poor care. So if they come in at a certain level of health, and because we are not addressing their holistic needs, their social, emotional, physical, spiritual needs, and they start to decline in their health, that's an issue. We don't want that to happen. So they have the right to services and activities to maintain a high level of wellness. They have a right to be fully informed about rights and services. And so this is like their legal rights and legal services that are available to them. When they receive mail, it's not our right to open that mail up and look at it, right? They have a right to complain about the care that they're receiving. An ombudsman, which as a vocabulary word you should be familiar with, ombudsman is a legal advocate for the resident, a legal advocate for the resident. So they are not employed by the facility, but they may come in and talk to the resident and then act as a mediator to try to help solve the problem. Maybe, for example, maybe the resident is upset because they feel like the food is disgusting. It's just cold slop, and they're just really unhappy. And because they don't like the food, they're not eating. Therefore, they're losing weight. Therefore, their health is declining. And so the ombudsman comes in and he listens or she listens to the resident to find out what the concern is, and then the ombudsman goes and acts as a mediator and talks to the head of the dietary department, and they see what kind of changes can be made to offer a solution to the problem. The next resident right, is to participate in their own care. They should be involved in the planning, treatment, care, and discharge process. They have a right to refuse medication treatment or care, and they have a right to be free of restraints. Residents also have the right to make independent choices. They have a right to choose what they want to wear, to maintain their own physician if they'd like, to spend their time how they want. They shouldn't be forced to play bingo if they don't want to play bingo. They have choices that they can still make in their life as they age, up until the point of their death. They have a right to privacy and confidentiality, and this is during care. So, to pull the curtain, shut the door, through communication. If they want to speak to their loved one on the phone or speak to visitors that they have, they should be given privacy during that time. And regarding their personal information, you shouldn't be in the lunchroom openly discussing your residents' issues or problems. They need to be given privacy and confidentiality of that. They have a right to dignity, respect, and freedom. They should be free from abuse and restraints. Any kind of abuse must be reported. We want to give them the most dignity and respect we possibly can in a time where they're struggling in that area. They have a right to security of possessions. So we need to make sure that we're doing what we can to keep their possessions safe, including the control of their finances. They can maintain control of their finances if they would like at this point, or they can sign that over to somebody else. With their possessions, some things should be labeled. We need to make sure that there is not stealing happening. If you suspect that of a coworker, it should be reported. But we need to be aware of that and honor that right. Transfers and discharges, they should be fully informed and give consent anytime there's a transfer or a discharge, and they have a right to their health records. So if you're going to transfer them to the hospital or to another unit, you can't just decide you're going to do it without consulting them first, without informing them of what's going to occur. They have a right to complain. They should not be in fear of the kind of care they're going to receive after they file a complaint. They shouldn't be in fear of their safety, and any kind of concerns that they bring up should be addressed quickly. It's okay for them to complain. Now, we should definitely listen to what their concerns are, and if there is some validity to that, then instead of being defensive, let's see if we can do a better job. But then sometimes there are some people you just can't please, and you have to also understand that side of things too. They have a right to visits at any reasonable hour. This is one of the things I think that's been really hard during the pandemic, is to keep them safe. Visits have been altered. They're not allowed to have visitors in right now. They have to visit through a window, but we still need to make sure that they are being given those rights. And, do they have a right to a visitor to come in at 1 o'clock in the morning? Maybe if they're dying, but, for the most part, we got to think about the rights of their roommate and the safety and rights of the other members that are living there. But ultimately, this is their home. And so if they want to invite somebody to come and visit with them, they should be allowed to do so. They have a right to social services. Facilities must provide access to social services to help them in whatever way that they need.